Right now, there could be a snake somewhere in your garden, and the plants you've been carefully growing are the exact reason it's there. I know that sounds alarming. But after reviewing research from university extension offices, herpetological institutes, and horticultural ecologists who have studied the relationship between garden plants and snake behavior, what I found is something every homeowner needs to know. Most people assume snakes wander into gardens randomly. They don't. Snakes are precision hunters. They go exactly where the conditions are right. The right shelter, the right moisture, the right food supply. And certain plants you almost certainly have in your garden right now are creating every single one of those conditions. We are going through 10 specific garden plants that are scientifically documented to attract snakes, the exact biological mechanism behind each one, and precisely what you should do about it. Now here is what most videos on this topic get completely wrong. They tell you which plants attract snakes, but they never tell you why. And the why is everything, because once you understand the mechanism, you will never look at your garden the same way again. Snakes are not attracted to plants themselves. They cannot eat them. They have no interest in them. What they are responding to is what those plants create. Researchers studying ophidian behavior, that is the scientific term for snake activity, have identified 3 specific conditions that draw snakes into a residential garden: a reliable food supply, a stable microclimate for temperature regulation, and dense physical cover that shields them from predators like hawks and owls. Certain garden plants, completely by accident, engineer all 3 of those conditions simultaneously. They trap moisture, which brings in slugs, frogs, and insects. They block sunlight, which keeps the ground cool and dark. And they grow so densely that a snake can move, hunt, and rest inside them without ever being seen. That is not bad luck. That is biology. And once you know which plants are doing this in your garden, you can do something about it. So let's get into it. We are going through 10 specific garden plants that horticultural ecologists and herpetological researchers have documented as prime snake attractants. For each one, I am going to tell you exactly what it does to your garden environment, the precise biological reason snakes are drawn to it, and exactly what you should replace it with or do about it, so you walk away from this video with a real action plan, not just a list of things to worry about. And I want you to stay until the end, because the last 2 plants on this list are the ones most homeowners never suspect. They are in almost every residential garden in the country, and they are quietly doing the most damage. Plant number 1. Hosta. Hostas are one of the most popular shade plants in residential gardens, and according to horticultural researchers, one of the most reliable snake attractants you can have growing close to your home. Here is why. Those wide, overlapping leaves act like biological umbrellas. They block sunlight, trap moisture against the soil, and keep the ground underneath permanently cool, dark, and damp. That microclimate is the preferred habitat for slugs, snails, and ground-level frogs, which happen to be the primary prey of garter snakes and brown snakes. Researchers note that gardeners most commonly discover snakes coiled underneath hostas during seasonal dividing and transplanting, because by that point, the snake has been living there undisturbed for weeks. Plant number 2, English ivy. English ivy is the ground cover that landscape designers love and herpetologists warn about. It grows in a dense, interlocking mat that traps humidity, insulates the soil surface, and completely blocks wind and sunlight from reaching the ground. That environment quietly supports massive populations of mice, voles, slugs, and insects, a fully stocked permanent food supply running right across your garden floor. Because the foliage is so thick, snakes can move, hunt, and rest inside English ivy completely shielded from aerial predators. University of Nebraska Extension research specifically flags dense ground covers like ivy as one of the primary structural conditions that make residential gardens hospitable to snakes year-round. Plant number 3, Pampas Grass. Pampas grass looks architectural and dramatic in a landscape. What it is building underneath, however, is something else entirely. The thick fountain of blades casts deep shade over the plant's base, keeping the underlying soil cool and damp. Over time, the interior accumulates a dense layer of dry, dead thatch, and that insulated interior becomes prime nesting and tunneling habitat for mice, voles, and ground-feeding birds. Snakes enter pampas grass clumps specifically to exploit those rodent runways. The dense outer foliage gives them complete cover from both human observation and natural predators. From the outside, the plant looks perfectly ornamental. From the inside, it is a fully operational hunting ground. Plant number 4, Jasmine. Jasmine is one of the most widely planted fragrant shrubs in residential gardens, placed near doorways, along walkways, and beside patios, specifically because of its sweet, intoxicating scent. But that fragrance is doing something in your garden that most homeowners never consider. The volatile organic compounds released by blooming jasmine, particularly night-blooming varieties like Cestrum nocturnum, act as powerful chemical attractants for nocturnal insects and pollinators. The moment those insects arrive in high concentrations, a second wave of predators follows. Geckos, lizards, toads, and tree frogs all move in to feed on them. Here is where the snake enters. Snakes track prey using 2 sophisticated chemosensory systems: their nasal olfactory pathway for long-range environmental mapping, and their vomeronasal organ, also known as Jacobson's organ, for close-range precision tracking. When a snake flicks its tongue, it is collecting chemical particles from the air and transferring them directly to that organ to pinpoint exactly where prey is concentrated. Jasmine, by flooding your garden with fragrance and insect activity, essentially broadcasts a chemical signal that leads snakes step by step directly into the plant. And once they arrive, the warm, tangled, densely shaded stems give them an elevated hunting perch where they can ambush climbing prey completely out of sight. The plant you planted for fragrance becomes a fully functional snake hunting station. Plant number 5, banana trees. Banana trees are a popular choice for gardeners who want to create a tropical feel, and they do exactly that. The problem is that the environment a banana tree creates is not just tropical in appearance, it is tropical in function. The massive, moisture-rich leaves create wide zones of deep shade on the ground directly beneath the plant. The fibrous layered pseudostem, the thick stalk that looks like a trunk, retains significant moisture and generates a consistently humid microenvironment around its base. That combination of deep shade, high humidity, and soft, decaying leaf material is precisely the environment that tree frogs, geckos, rats, and mice seek out for feeding and nesting. Arboreal and semi-arboreal snake species are drawn to banana plantings specifically to hunt these prey populations. Researchers note that snakes use the soft, cushioned leaf petioles as resting sites where they can regulate their body temperature while remaining completely concealed within the dense foliage. What makes banana trees particularly high risk is their height and structure. A snake can move from ground level all the way up into the canopy without ever crossing open ground. The plant itself provides the entire vertical pathway. If your banana tree is near a fence, a wall, or another structure, that pathway extends even further. Plant number 6, wisteria. Wisteria is one of the most visually dramatic plants in any garden. The cascading purple blooms, the thick twisted vines climbing trellises and pergolas. It is the kind of plant people specifically build structures to support. And that structure is exactly what makes it dangerous. Wisteria vines develop a thick, gnarled, heavily twisted branch architecture over time. For climbing snake species, vine snakes, rat snakes, and in tropical regions, tree pythons, that twisted structure is the equivalent of a purpose-built climbing frame. Each coil of vine gives the snake a grip point, allowing it to ascend effortlessly to roof level, upper windows, and surrounding tree canopies. Research on snake locomotion documents a climbing technique called lasso locomotion, where a snake wraps its body around a vertical structure in a secure loop and propels itself upward. Mature wisteria provides ideal anchor points for exactly this movement, which means a wisteria vine grown against the wall of your home is not just a garden feature. It is a direct physical bridge between ground level and your roofline. Beyond the climbing risk, wisteria's sprawling branches on trellises and pergolas create an elevated canopy that gives snakes a shaded, elevated hunting platform with unobstructed sight lines to ground-level activity below. The connection between this plant and snake behavior is so historically documented that Japanese folklore contains legends of wisteria vines literally transforming into snakes, a cultural memory of how reliably the two appear together. Plant number 7. Lantana. Lantana looks like the perfect low-maintenance garden plant. Drought-tolerant, colorful, attractive to butterflies, it checks every box for an easy, beautiful garden border. But in drier climates, the way lantana is maintained creates a snake problem hiding in plain sight. In arid environments like the American Southwest and West, lantana requires regular irrigation to sustain its blooming cycle. That irrigation turns the planting into a moist, cool, humid oasis in an otherwise dry landscape. And in a dry environment, that contrast is enormous. Rattlesnakes and other desert reptiles are specifically drawn to irrigated lantana beds to escape the extreme heat of the day, using the low, tangled branches as a cool, shaded refuge. The problem compounds further because lantana produces small, dark berries that attract seed-eating birds and rodents. Those rodents attract more snakes. The irrigation attracts the snakes seeking relief from heat, and the dense, low-branching structure gives them complete cover once they arrive. A lantana border planted along a residential patio or walkway in a dry climate is quietly functioning as a snake rest stop, positioned right at the edge of your outdoor living space, refreshed by your own irrigation system every single day. Plant number 8. Taro, also known as elephant ears. Taro is one of those plants that stops people in their tracks. The massive, shield-shaped leaves, the bold, tropical presence, the way it transforms an ordinary garden corner into something that feels lush and dramatic. It is one of the most visually striking plants a homeowner can choose, and one of the most problematic from a snake attraction standpoint. Taro is typically cultivated in wet, muddy soils or positioned near water features, ponds, and garden fountains. That preference for consistent moisture means most gardeners are already placing it in the dampest, most sheltered corner of the yard. The broad, overlapping leaves then take that naturally wet environment and intensify it, creating a dark, damp, heavily shaded understory that horticultural ecologists describe as mimicking a tropical forest floor at ground level. That microenvironment is extraordinarily attractive to frogs, toads, salamanders, and moisture-loving insects. These are not occasional visitors. They establish consistent populations directly underneath the plant, creating a permanent, reliable food source that draws snakes back to the same location repeatedly. What makes taro particularly high risk is its combination of factors working simultaneously. The moisture attracts the prey. The broad leaves provide the overhead canopy. The muddy soil at the base stays soft and cool. And the visual density of the planting means a snake coiled at the base of a taro plant is virtually invisible from a standing position. You could walk past it every single day and never know it was there. Landscape designers working in snake-prone regions recommend clearing all leaf litter and organic debris from around the base of taro consistently, or companion planting with highly aromatic herbs like rosemary or lavender nearby, because those strong, volatile scents disrupt the snake's chemosensory tracking ability, are making it harder for them to precisely locate the prey animals living underneath. Plant number 9. Cedar trees. Cedar is a plant that most homeowners would never associate with snake activity. It is ornamental, it smells clean and woody, and it is often chosen specifically because of its reputation as a natural pest deterrent. The reality documented by researchers is considerably more complicated. The living wood of cedar trees emits an aromatic, fragrant scent that is not a deterrent for snakes. It is an attractant. That fragrance, combined with the rough, deeply furrowed bark of a mature cedar trunk, makes it one of the most climbable trees in a residential garden. Snakes ascend rough bark far more easily than smooth bark, using the texture for grip at every point of contact along their body. The deeper problem develops when climbing vines, ivy, jasmine, wisteria, or any other species, are allowed to grow up the trunk of a cedar. That vine network creates a heavily shaded, moisture-retaining framework directly against the bark. Rodents construct nests inside those vine networks, particularly at the sheltered root flare where the trunk meets the ground. That concentration of nesting rodents at the base of a tree that snakes can effortlessly climb creates a direct, vertical hunting corridor from the soil all the way into the upper canopy. Researchers documenting arboreal snake behavior note that snakes hunting bird nests and tree frogs will use exactly this kind of vine-covered trunk as their primary access route. If your cedar has climbing vines on it and there are bird feeders or nesting boxes anywhere in your yard, or you have likely already created this corridor without realizing it. The combination that makes cedar specifically dangerous is not the tree alone. It is the cedar acting as the vertical highway for a snake that is already in your garden because of every other condition you have unknowingly created around it. Plant number 10. Blackberry bushes. Blackberry bushes are the last plant on this list, and they earn their place at number 10 because they represent the most complete, self-contained snake habitat of anything we have covered today. Every other plant on this list attracts snakes by creating one or two favorable conditions. Blackberry bushes create all of them at once, and then add a physical defense system that locks the snake safely inside. The dense, sprawling bramble of a mature blackberry planting features thick and thorny stems that grow in interlocking, overlapping layers. For humans and large mammalian predators like foxes and dogs, those thorns make the interior of a blackberry thicket effectively inaccessible. Snakes, which navigate by sliding between obstacles rather than pushing through them, move through that exact same thorn structure with complete ease. The thorns that keep every predator out keep the snake perfectly protected inside. Inside that protected space, the conditions are ideal. The canopy of canes and leaves keeps the interior shaded and cool. The soil stays moist from that consistent shade, and the blackberries themselves function as a food web anchor. The ripe and fallen fruit draws in mice, voles, and ground-feeding birds in large numbers. Those animals are not passing through. They are feeding, nesting, and establishing permanent residence inside the bramble. And where prey animals establish permanent residence, snakes follow. University Extension research on snake habitat management specifically flags dense, thorny thickets as one of the highest-risk structural features in a residential garden, precisely because their impenetrability to humans makes them impossible to monitor and extremely difficult to clear once snakes have moved in. If you have a blackberry planting anywhere on your property, researchers recommend keeping the surrounding grass mowed to a very short height, cleaning up fallen fruit immediately and consistently, and always wearing heavy-duty leather gloves, long pants, and fully closed shoes when harvesting or maintaining the planting. The fruit is worth having. That the habitat it quietly builds around itself requires active, consistent management to keep safe.